Welcome back into another episode. Benji, Brady, we're here for episode 2 of season 2. 2-2. So
2-2.
2 and 2. Glad you guys are back. How we feeling today?
Man, it's awesome. Just so excited to get this going again. We talked about that last episode and got some really cool topics to talk about today, and hopefully someone can take away a nugget and implement it in their own business.
Yeah, just some cool stuff. The new branding is out as we are recording this. We've got it out. We've shared it. Really excited about the new look. I think it's clean. It's fresh. Like we talked about, it's a new season, a new era, a new chapter, new co-host. So I'm excited. It looks great.
Yeah, we got a new website.
I think I saw it on Instagram too.
I'm proud of you. We were talking about this a little bit before we hit record. I'm very proud. You did the collaboration and everything all by yourself.
I gotta be honest with you. I didn't know what collaboration was until yesterday.
His daughter showed him.
Should it concern us a little bit that you kind of just accepted something without wondering?
I did. Full disclosure.
Yeah, check out the website, higheruppodcast.com too. There's some really cool things on there. You can subscribe to our newsletter and keep up to date with what we got going on.
Yeah, newsletter looks great. So Benji's going to be working on getting some of that out, just some updates. If you guys have anything, it's also a great place to connect with Benji and Brady. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want us to specifically cover, to talk about, this is a great way for you to be able to connect with the two of them, ask those questions. And look, if we get some great questions, we'll put a whole episode around it, right?
Yeah,
we'll work on some of those.
Absolutely.
So, well, sweet. Well, let's jump in. I know listeners are ready. So today's episode, we're going to be covering it's all in the details. So Benji, kind of share a little bit. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So what it means to me, I want to start out by asking a question. Are there any Disney fans out there? Now, I have a good buddy of mine who works at our national headquarters, Chris Layfield. He is probably the biggest Disney fanatic out there besides my wife.
Oh, I was about to say besides your wife.
I think I've mentioned this to a lot of people. There's a really good chance if I bought a house in Orlando that I would probably never see my family because they would go to the park every single day of every single week. So, hey, look, if you're a Disney fan, man, go to our website and just send us a note. And what's your favorite thing to do at Disney? I tell you what mine is. Mine is to ask a lot of questions. I'm very observant to the details that Disney provides their customers. And the reason people go to Disney, think about this. They say a lot, it's the happiest place on earth. I mean, that's what Disney is. Mm-hmm. But there's so many details that goes in behind the scenes at Disney that people don't even realize. I was thinking about, how can we take this simple topic of it's in the details and implement it in our day-to-day business? I'm going to start out with one, okay? Most people don't realize this, and honestly, I didn't realize this until we took a trip, imagine, to Disney recently. If you ever notice when a Disney employee is pointing you in the right direction, okay, they never use one finger. And the reason they never use one finger is because they use two fingers. They use their index and their middle finger together, and they point you in the right direction. And I just asked one day, why do you guys do that? And they say that if you point at one with one finger, it can be offensive. I've never thought of that before. And I thought, how in the world can it be offensive if you use one finger instead of two? Why wouldn't I just use all four? And they said it just looks weird. So if you think about it, if they say it's offensive, what are some things that we can do in our day-to-day business that we may take for granted that could be offensive to a customer? Mm-hmm. Okay, and there are all different ways we can do that. So I wanted to open up to you guys. What do you think? Brady, is there anything you can think of that we could do different from a perspective of how do we not be offensive to the customer when we deal with issues every single day? This may be the first time they ever deal with an experience with our company. Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. When you were saying, just first off, when you were saying pointing one finger, I've always heard when you're pointing one finger, then there's three pointing right back at you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So at least at Disney, there's only two.
That's right. There's two. It's an even shot. You got 2 and 2.
Yeah, they look at it as two coming back at you, two out, and one's up in the air because your thumb's up in the air.
That's right. No, I think that's a really good question because I think a lot of times, especially like in our specific business that we're in, Benji, we have to really be empathetic to the customer. And I think one of those things are when you're talking about the details is in our line of work, it's pretty it's a pretty emotional type deal. It's right up there. Statistics stay with like death in the family and things of that nature. So I think just answering your question is being empathetic toward the customer or their needs. It's about them. And so in the details, I think a lot of times, even myself included, we kind of put our own filter or we kind of put our own spin on things, or even in our conversations, we do it based off of what we want to get out of the conversation instead of what they need to get out of the conversation to be there for them. And I think that's probably what you're saying is Disney does it so well. It doesn't matter about them. They're not the customer.
That's right.
There are people that are paying a lot of money to go have this experience, and they want you to have.
They're spending a lot of money,
and they are in y'all's business too. It's a lot of money.
and so I mean, I think we have to remember that a lot of times is it's about them. How can we take care of them? And I think that's just one little detail. It's not about us. It's about them.
That's exactly right. And no, go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I'll share with you, and I'm not just trying to say it just because it's y'all's team, but I mean even you're talking about just having empathy over things. Just a quick story. Was it about 2 or 3 weeks ago? It was like 9:15, 9:30. Like I'm ready. Like I look, y'all. I'm a go to bed early guy. Like I get in bed.
I'm right there with you.
I'm up early in the morning, so I'm in bed, and I get a phone call from my mom. And it's FaceTime. I'm like, why is she FaceTiming me? I'm like, nah. So I knew my dad was out of town. I knew something had to go on. And y'all, she's just bawling. I mean, she's bawling, crying. She's immediately talking about how she's messed up, how she feels old. I was like, slow down. So what happened?
Yeah.
And essentially, she just was doing the dishes. And she walked out. She said, I think she took the dog out, came back, didn't think about it. She had the water on real low, and basically the plate got suction cupped to the bottom of the sink. It overflowed, and y'all, it ran for 45 minutes. She realized that she came in and she's just, I mean, she's bawling and she's going through, so it's emotional. And that was one of the things that really kind of stuck with me is going through this. I went over there, I tried to help her. I tried to prep everything and get it ready. Of course, called y'all's team. I mean, that's the only one we're calling. Got them there. They actually gave me a little bit of a hard time. They're like, Adam, you did most of the work before we got here. Like, I need my hours. And so, but just through that experience, I mean, going through it, it was so emotional for her. And even talking through just the project managers, just the production techs, like coming in, she even shared a story that one of the project managers, she was just like, I'm so sorry, I messed up. And he was like, listen, this happens all the time. And it is not something because you're getting older. He said, look, this happens with people that are in the early 20s. This happens with people mid-age with you. He said, this is not you. And it's just that type of care is very much similar to what you're talking about. But she just really, like, he really wanted her to understand this was not you. This is not something that you caused. I mean, yeah, it came from something that happened for you, but it's an accident and it happens. And there's just so much empathy. And like you said, for her, I mean, she's a military wife. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've moved, how many houses we've been in. Never have had a water damage like this at all. At all. So for her, in an emotional standpoint, it's so different. And just seeing it and hearing her and talking, and it's just, I mean, yeah, you get it from your customers, but being someone in my own family, walking through it with her, trying to explain to her, like, hey, this is what they're doing, this is the process, it just really made me even more sensitive to the fact that it's just something that we see so much in that industry, but our customers don't. And so, and maybe it's the same thing for like you're talking about, Ben, you were going to Disney, like, it's expensive. There's some people that save for a long time to be able just to go once, maybe every 5 years, 10 years. And so to be able to give them an experience and have those details and even just those small conversations, I think it goes such a long way. It doesn't matter your industry, doesn't matter what your consumer base is, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and I'll give you something to ponder. McDonald's or Chick-fil-A experience. Think about that. McDonald's used to be, and serious, McDonald's used to be the fast food company to go to, the fast food restaurant. It changed the industry.
Yeah.
But now they have really, from a customer service and a detail perspective, they've gone the opposite way. Now, I won't say that for all McDonald's, but a lot do that. You know, Chick-fil-A.
Well, they want to get things out so fast. McDonald's is like, hey, let's get it in and get it out. But Chick-fil-A still does that, and to me has high quality and customer service. So
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, it's in the details. I was at a meeting on Sunday, and one of the guys in our group, that he's a dad, and I think it was his son. He said his son worked for Chick-fil-A several years ago, and they actually brought the parents to the interview. And they said, "Hey, listen, if Junior doesn't make it, like if we have to send him home, then don't be upset at that, just because some people make it and some people don't, you know, but our it's about the customer and the experience that we give them." And so they even go to the detail, and I don't know if they do that anymore, but I just thought that was real interesting. Like, you know, they're trying to get everybody on board and everybody to understand exactly what they're trying to do. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's buy-in from all around. I mean, it's not just that. I mean, for a lot of these kids, especially like Chick-fil-A, they're hiring younger kids to go ahead and give them that experience, you know. And look, food industry is not an easy experience.
Oh, man.
And not something easy to work in. So I think doing that, to me, it's just, you get the buy-in from the parents, like, look, these are things that are going on. We're going to need your help at home. It's going to be hard. And I think a lot of those things helps get the buy-in all around.
Yeah, and think about this too. It's not just our industry. You can be empathetic, you know, in the details of every industry out there, including your local church. You know, you have to understand, hurting people hurt people. Hurting people come to a place where they want to get encouragement, they want to get fed, or maybe they don't even know the Lord to begin with, but they're searching. And as empathetic as we can be when those people approach our front doors, could change their life. So you have to think it's all in the details of how you approach. Here's a second one I want to bring up. Who has never seen a Disney employee not smile? Have you ever noticed that? But I will tell you, there is one ride at Disney that they do not smile.
The best one of all.
It's your favorite.
It's my favorite.
The Haunted Mansion. Think about that.
I thought you were going to say It's a Small World.
No, they all smile on that one.
How they're smiling.
I have no
how many
idea.
times they hear that song. That's, again, props to them.
Yeah, it was funny. You walk up to the Haunted Mansion, people wait hour and a half to ride this 45-second, it seems like, ride.
Greatest ride there is.
But it was very cold. But what's interesting about that ride, have you ever noticed when you walk up, they say, please fill in all the dead space. They want you to all move in together, right? But at the Haunted Mansion, it is the only place, in the happiest place on earth, that I can think of that they don't smile. So think about this. If smiling means that much, how, going back to the empathetic, in the details, how can that help us in our businesses, in our churches? One smile difference. Think about this. You walk up to a door. Miss Smith is standing there, again, probably one of the worst disasters in their life, which your mom dealt with. But one smile changes the trajectory of how that process is going to go. So there are times where we shouldn't smile either, right? Because you can be happy all the time. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But there are times where you have to be empathetic and read the room, read the customer, make sure that we're doing the right thing, we're explaining the right process. So smiling can go a long way. Brady, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that, you know, sometimes it's difficult to do that because just, you know, everybody's going through something. But we have to remember what we're there for and who we're there for. And I think that kind of that grounds us. And we have to, like when we're and we're driving up to the customer, or like you said at church, we're driving up to the church to serve or do whatever. It's almost like pause and take a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, close your eyes and like, what am I here to do? And then that'll help, get you back into focus of that. And then, hey, we're there for the customer, so we need to put our best foot forward because they're going through a very difficult time right now. And so we need to, if we can make their day just a little bit better, then that will go a long way.
Adam, if you noticed when you walk into church, you pick out someone, you're reading who's at the service or whatever. Mm-hmm. You've noticed people that are not smiling. You ever catch yourself like, hey, I need to go say something to them?
Yeah, well, especially in my position too. I mean, as a photographer, like I'm not going to take a picture of myself ain't smiling at church.
Right.
I mean, but yes, because yesterday in our staff meeting, our pastor brought up a stat I didn't really think about, but he talked about that every year your attrition rate for your church is 10%. He said you're going to lose 10% of your people. Doesn't matter if they've been there couple weeks. He said, I've been there for 20 years. You're going to lose 10% of your attrition. And he talked about like our guest experience. And he said, your guests are the lifeline to your church. And I think sometimes you get so focused on the people that are always there and pleasing the people that are always there. But really who you need to do the most is your guest, because those are the ones that are going to fill those 10% of attrition you're trying to fill. On top of that too, guests typically have a higher rate of bringing people, right? Like maybe they don't want to go by themselves.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, will you come with me to church?
Yeah,
because
that's true.
Sunday morning is not only is it one of the most diverse places on Sundays. I mean, just different nationalities, different denominations, different whatever it is, everything, like it's so diverse on Sunday. But when it has those things, you're looking at how do we keep those people, or how do we keep those people? How do we let them see that this is a community-based church? Mm-hmm. This is something that keeps people happy. So those are some things that you look at. And as you're talking about exactly that, like you see someone who's maybe not smiling or maybe unsure or whatever, like go talk to them, welcome them. I'll tell you a quick story. We were driving to lunch with my lead pastor the other day, and he was talking to me, and he had visited a church called Oaks Church. They're based out of Texas. Phenomenal church, social media wise. Creative team's awesome. He said they were visiting some family. They wanted to see it. They've always wanted to see it. I followed them for a while. I think they do great things. He said they walked in, and they were greeted by, he said, this probably 20, 25-year-old girl. She walked up and said, hey, I'm so-and-so. And she said, hey, just a weird question. Do y'all happen to be pastors? And he was like, yes. And he was like, actually, we are. And he was like, well, I got a weird question for you, too. How did you know that? He's like, because they just went to visit. Didn't sound to anything. He said, she was like, so we've actually been trained on what to look for with pastors.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, what were y'all doing? Like, he said, so we were there 30 minutes before service. So we got there early. And he said, we weren't being like over the top with it, but we were kind of taking some pictures. We were
They were being observant.
And he said that she told them, we've been trained to do this, to look for pastors and how we can serve you. And she was like, hey, can I give y'all a tour of the facility? And he was like, we'd love that. She's like, hey, before we go, do y'all want any coffee or anything? And they said, yeah, we'd love some. Took them around the opposite side of the coffee bar, said, hey, I've got 2 pastors that are visiting with us today. They'd like such and such. Can I get that stat? I mean, he was like, I felt bad because there's like a line of people waiting for coffee. And they're like, sure, done. He said,
they were showing honor to the pastor. Let's be real.
Like 2 or 3 minutes, got it done, got it to him. And then she was like, they took them everywhere. Like, what do y'all want to see? Where do you want to go? Do you want to see behind the platform? Do you want to see our offices? Like, what, do you have any questions about our kids ministry, student ministry? So before service, walking around everywhere. And then when they were done, she was like, hey, here's my number. If y'all have any questions, if there's any resources that you've seen today, anything that we can give you and provide you, we'd love to. Like, just give that to us. He said he just walked away. Like, I mean, like he said, if they're doing that for us, as pastors, what are they doing for their guests? So he said it just a whole new. So think about that. Like they've been trained. You're talking about training. Like how are we trained? How do we know? How do we provide service? He said I walked away with an experience that day thinking like they took care of us and they really showed us because they wanted us to have a good experience and they wanted us to learn from them. So he just told me he was like,
That's really neat.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
That's details. They have spent time in the details, and you brought it up a second ago, training. So what was interesting about my last trip to Disney, we took this thing called a minivan. Now I know exactly what most people are thinking right now. It's not a minivan. It's not an MINI van. It's an MINNIE van, and they do have these things called mini, like Minnie Mouse vans. And what they are is basically like think of an Uber that is wrapped in a mini. It
looks like Minnie Mouse.
Exactly.
It's got ears on it.
And it does not have ears.
It has ears all around it, though.
All around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. So I was riding with this guy, and of course, Sarah and the family are like, "Oh no, here we go. He's about to start asking questions." So I asked this guy. I said, "So tell me this. You drive this minivan. Like this has to be the easiest job at Disney." He said, "Not only is it probably the easiest job at Disney, it's the most sought after job at Disney." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Think about it. We drive a vehicle around all day long and take people from point A to point B." I said, "Okay, I have to know more. Like, what's the reasoning behind this?" He said, "The reason it's the most sought after job is because it's the easiest, but it's the hardest job to get at Disney. Everybody tries to get this job." I said, "Okay, well, how do you get this job? Like, if I retired, could I come drive for the minivan?" Yeah, I'm serious. I did ask this question. He goes, "Honestly, you can't." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Doesn't matter how much experience you have outside of Disney, you have to work at least 1 year inside of Disney before you can even apply for this job." He said, "I have been doing this since the inception of the minivan experience, which happened like 17 years ago." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "There's only 40 full-time employees that do this job. We have some part-timers and seasonal, around Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that when there's an uptick in people needing a ride." He said, "But the reason why it's the hardest job to get and it's the most sought-after job to get is because of the training behind what we have to do." I said, "How in the world do you have to train to drive this vehicle?" He said, No, you're missing it." He said, "We have to train. I have to know every single park. I have to know every single route. I have to know every single restaurant. And it's not just about putting it in my maps on my phone and getting me from point A to point B. Not only do I have to know where these places are, but I have to be the roadmap to educate you on that place. So if I don't know about that place and I don't have the knowledge about that restaurant or that ride or whatever that you want to go do, I'm not a good cast member. And me being not a good cast member, I can't do this job." He said, it is hard test. So I got to thinking, sometimes even at Disney, Brady, there are people in many organizations that don't focus on training. And we all get accustomed to it. We all just go about our day-to-day business and whatever that is. When Adam mentioned, the lady said it's in our training. We're looking for a pastor. We're able to point that out.
Yeah.
Why is training so important and consistent training so important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's really two things. One, it goes back to you got to have a good foundation. You got to have good systems. You can do all the training in the world, but if you don't have the systems, then it's not really going to mean a whole lot. And I'm sure Disney has a ton of systems.
Probably more than we want to know.
Probably more than we want to know. But it's a foundation. The author of Atomic Habits, James Clear, he says that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so I think it starts with that. And then once you've established those processes, those procedures, those systems, then to me it's all about rhythm. So think about the rhythms that we currently have in our own daily lives, or rhythms that we need to change. And in your business or your organization, whichever one, you have to have a rhythm of training. You never want to get complacent of that we know it all. I think it was John Wooden that said it's really it's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what training does is it sharpens our skills. It takes the foundation of the systems and the processes that we have, but it sharpens our skills on those things. Constantly be learning, constantly be reading and listening and growing, and then taking those things that we need to get better at and train. It does. I mean, Benji, you and I have been in the industry that we're in for a very long time, but if we don't continue to sharpen our skills, then the organization is going to go flat at some point. But Adam, to your point, even like you said, 10% attrition or turnover in the church. Mm-hmm. Well, you've got to have training for those new people that are coming in. It's like an organization turnover rate. You got people coming in all the time that don't know, that don't have, 50, 60, 70 years worth of collective experience. So you've got to train everybody. And you can always learn something, but training has to be a rhythm of your organization.
Yeah. I mean, even in the day-to-day, I try to make sure that just personally training's there for, even capturing video, taking pictures. It's got to be, it's something I always tell people. They're like, oh, I want to get into taking pictures. It's like, you got to carry it everywhere. Like, there is a camera with me at all times. Yeah, maybe it's my phone, but I take it and I train with it and I use it. And it's about putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. One of the things I've been doing lately is in filming, trying to use different tactics, like trying to film more with my gimbal. Like I have a nice one. I don't use it a lot, but man, when you pull it out and you start using it, you realize I need to use this more. Like I need to have muscle memory. I need to understand that turning my right hand while turning my left hand while doing this does that, and they need to not think about it. And whether that's how we speak, whether that's how we think, whether that's in our physical actions we've got to train ourselves to be able to do those things. When I'm taking pictures on Sunday morning, that's something I'm trying to teach our team. Like you got to be able to manipulate the camera. Like, putting in auto is not going to do it. Okay?
I was going to say it's not an autofocus auto.
It is not. When the first thing people ask me, like, hey, what do I need to do to learn how to take pictures? I said, put it in manual and learn the exposure triangle and go. Like, but I have to have muscle memory. Like I got to be able to know what buttons I'm pushing without looking and moving things. And I think that goes into tactics with even just like when we're dealing with customers. Like they ask a question, we need to be able to respond to it and answer it without thinking about it. Be like, well, let me find that. Yes, there's going to be moments like that. But when a customer asks us something or a customer needs something, the more training we have and the more time we know what to say, just like your Disney folks, Benji, you're saying, like, if they're in the minivan, they're like, hey, what do you think about this pizzeria over here? He's like, oh, man, they're and immediately, he's able to knock these things out.
Look, this guy told me, I meant to tell you, this guy told me he has a spreadsheet. Again, he was one of those figure skaters for Disney, traveled all over the world with his wife in a travel camper, a pull-behind camper, city to city, state to state. And he said he has a spreadsheet now because they do live in Orlando, obviously, of every restaurant at Disney. I want to say he said there was like over 700 restaurants or something, some ungodly number. That's just on property. He's been to all of them except for like 80. So he mentioned the pizza place. So I'm sorry you talked about pizza,
but he's training himself. Going the extra mile. He's taking
spreadsheet. He's speaking my language right there. He is speaking my language.
As soon as he said spreadsheet.
Hey Adam, I do have a quick question. Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned a gimbal.
Yes.
Is that like a condition? What is that? I don't even know what that is.
So your gimbal is it's basically a stabilizer for your camera. Are you making fun of me? Is that what's happening here?
I was like, gimbal. What is a gimbal?
If you're watching this on YouTube, you should see mine and Brady's face right now.
You'll understand. I'm not. Where our listeners will find is I'm not good at reading Brady at all. Like when I think he's being serious, he's being funny.
Hey, listen, Adam will geek out on his photography equipment.
Hey, he's in the details. He's got the training.
Details. That's right. That's right.
I still a long way to go. I always tell people, Like I was talking to somebody last night. I was doing some pictures with the kids at the high school, and they're like, "Oh, I miss having you be able to teach us and show." I'm like, "You got to do it yourself." Like I didn't go to school for it. I enjoyed it. I wanted to get better at it, and I realized, well, how do I get better? I get better at taking pictures on Sunday. I get better at taking pictures of my kids when they go to the park, right? I mean, like it's different conditions, different things, but I'm always taking pictures. The girls laugh because I take so many pictures of them, but what they don't realize is, one, yes, I'm capturing memories like I want to.
Yeah.
But the other side is, honestly, there's some times I'm taking pictures of them when we go to the park or they're doing sports that I'm really just trying to use something that I'm not in a do or die situation. Like I got to deliver this to a client and make sure that I understand how to do it. So when I am in the situation, I can be successful.
It's become a rhythm to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny, to finish up on training, that's where the details come in. And most people don't spend enough time in the details to train, because again, if you continue to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, it becomes numb at some point of what those details are. And you might skip a step, you might skip a process, and it can totally change the outcome of what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, let me ask y'all, as we get ready to wrap up, I'm going to hit y'all with a question. I want y'all to be able to, I want to see if you can answer. As you as owners, okay, handling a company of 200 plus people, what do each of you do? So kind of share with our listeners, because both of you are totally different individuals. What do you do from a training standpoint to ensure that you're continuing to be successful at your role and to know that you're making sure you're dialing in those details?
Great question. Mine is probably, we have a phrase that we use on our side of the house, 7 times 7 ways. You can educate someone, whether it's a client, whether it's your employee, through training. You can educate them 7 times, and finally the 7th time they actually go, "I've never heard that." Well, we've only talked to you about it 7 times before, but they finally kicked in and remembered, "Oh, that's what we're doing."
Yeah.
So if you don't continue to train and process on it 7 times 7 ways, keep it. Our dad used to say, the horse is dead, dismount. It's time to move on. Let's move on down the road. But unfortunately, in training, you have to continue to provide the details, because details drives data. Data drives decisions. If we can get the details done, then we can make educated decisions as we move forward in our process. So again, 7 times 7 ways would be what I would say keeps me on track.
Yeah, I would say that there's there's this thing that kind of lives inside of us that we always want to be better. Like we're never good with status quo. And so, I mean, just one example that looks like for me is how do we create margin, and margin in our thinking, and margin in what we can learn. For me personally, just a personal goal of mine this year was to read 12 books. And now I don't physically read. I do the audiobook, which Adam, you make fun of me for, so thank you.
Hey, I'm right there with you.
But I set a goal to do 12 this year at the beginning of the year. Well, I was looking the other day, just kind of tracking my progress, and I have already done year to date 17. And
awesome.
I've got more on
So
the list.
Do you quit, Brady?
I don't quit. No, because what happens is it's this weird thing is, once you get on a roll and you start doing it, you're like, man, I can keep going. I can keep learning. I can keep growing. And so I've got a list loaded up for the next round of what I'm trying to learn. But
he's gonna double that goal for 2025.
Maybe so. We'll see. See what happens.
Hey, Adam, you'll be proud of me. This year, I actually started to listening to more podcasts. Up until we were doing this one, I really I didn't listen to podcasts.
Yeah. And does this one count?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. At least there's one download per episode. That's me. It doesn't matter how many times I edit. I want to hear it, like in a car or through my headphones. How does it sound like when it's out there?
Absolutely. So, I've started listening to more podcasts, and it's educating me. Leadership podcasts. I actually listen to murder podcasts, and people are like, "Why do you listen to murder
podcast?"
Yeah, well, it's really trying to figure. It's not really talking about how they murder people. It's talking
detective
about
work.
Yeah, it's how to solve a problem. That's really what they're doing. And so
I figured it was like training for going back to the haunted house.
Well, that was one of the big things Brady did this year with our with the executive team, was like, hey, what are you reading and what are you listening
Yep.
to? And that was a big thing that you pushed on us, and I've done the same thing. I just finished. I'm trying to remember. I think it was the Gratitude Factor. It was a Truett Cathy, like a story of him. And so I just finished that one. That one was great. And so I'm moving on to another one. I've got a list of them, and then I'm trying to just absorb podcasts, and I'm trying not to listen to as much music while I'm driving, especially now that I've got a longer drive to work. I'm trying to consume just different podcasts, whether it's about church, whether it's about media, business, whatever it is. I'm trying to consume those. And also, that's one of my favorite parts at the end of the year. Like, I want to see my Spotify. Like, what does it give me at the end of the year? Did I listen to more podcasts and music? Like, what is it? So that's one of the things I'm doing the same thing, just trying to just consume this year.
Yeah, nowadays you talk about what I'm showing. Your algorithm probably shows you what you need to be listening to after hearing so many of them.
Oh yeah.
Pretty neat stuff. No, we just wanted, as we wrap up the show today, just wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for listening and joining in. Again, check out our website, higheruppodcast.com. You can connect with us on all the social media platforms, Higher Up Podcast. And again, you have a choice every single day, and we want to encourage you to choose to live a higher up life. Have a good day.
Have a good one. Later, guys.